Can you believe it? Summer is just about over. I'm Jeff Wagner in for Charlie Sykes. Sunday Insight starts right now. Well, good morning. Welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, Wisconsin Attorney General Brad Schimel announced that police body camera video of the shooting that led to the violence in Sherman Park would not be released until the investigation was completed. Some of the usual suspects were outraged that Schimel would not want to participate in a rush to judgment, a prosecutor doing his job. What a novel concept. Milwaukee County attorneys demanded that Pokemon Go be shut down in Lake Park unless and until the company gets a permit to put virtual creatures in the park. Heaven forbid there should be something that gets real people to actually use a public park. And as school begins, UWM is posting notices cautioning students against using language that constitutes a microaggression. Some banned words and phrases: third world, lame, thug, crazy, ghetto, illegal alien, and politically correct. UWM also wants other suggestions as to offensive language. How about, and I'll use the words in a sentence, what overpaid, pointy-headed bozos came up with a stunningly stupid idea like this? First this morning, has Donald Trump turned his struggling presidential campaign around? Trailing in most polls, Trump has recently restructured his campaign staff for the third time. He appears to be more willing to use a teleprompter, but he's still prone to unscripted moments like this week when he called Hillary Clinton a racist. In Wisconsin this week, his campaign listed a number of female Trump supporters, including former Lieutenant Governor Margaret Farrell and state senators Alberta Darling and Mary Lazick. Many prominent Republican women were noticeable by their absence, however. So, is the Trump train back on the tracks? Joining me on our panel this morning, Susie Falk of the Falk Group, State Senator Alberta Darling, Tracy Johnson of the Commercial Association of Realtors, and State Representative Jim Ott. So, Senator Darling, you're out there on the Trump train. Is this going to turn things around?
Well, you know, this is a difficult election. It's going to be the nastiest election we've ever seen. And if you look at our options, Trump is saying the right thing. He's talking about national security. He's talking about public security on the streets. He's talking about growing the economy. He's talking about immigration. His messaging is what people care about. He's an outsider, which people care about right now.
Okay, well, let me just stop. You say he's talking about immigration. I mean, one of the big things was he got the nomination by saying he wants to deport 11 million illegal aliens, which a lot of people like me think is just not practical, but it got him some support. This week he appears to be backtracking on that, and a lot of the hard right folks are saying they feel betrayed. I mean, where is he on immigration?
Well, I think what he said yesterday, that he does not believe that exporting 11 million people is very, very practical, and I think leaders have to be practical, and they should change their mind when they come to a different conclusion. But the fact is, as a mother and a grandmother, I think this is such a critical time in our country that we have to make the right choice. And 2 Supreme Court justices will be decided. And also, I want Paul Ryan to be the leader he is. And if Hillary is the president, he will not have that opportunity.
Tracy Johnson, a lot of people describe this, the phrase is a binary choice, that you've got Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and nobody likes either choice, but Donald Trump supporters would say he's better than Hillary Clinton, or Hillary supporters would say she's better than Donald Trump. How did we get in this mess in the first place?
Well, when you look at the numbers, Trump's poll numbers in Wisconsin at least have been very consistent, anywhere between 35 and 39%. Hillary's kind of all over the map. Trump is very consistent, and he's starting to add people. He's starting to add people to that percentage as people are looking at that binary choice. This is game time when people are having to make a decision. And I think the Republicans are getting in line. They're realizing, like Senator Darling had said, that this is our choice and we need to make it for Donald Trump.
You don't think it's too late to turn things around?
I think that people are looking at this. I think that with his campaign changes, as crazy as it may seem, I think he's on the right path. People are starting to make decisions, and Hillary is screwing up all over the place.
Susie Falk, I mean, it was a bad week for Hillary Clinton. I mean, there's no question about it. The emails and all the stuff.
A very good few months, let's just face it, okay? But I still think for a lot of people she's the safer choice. I do think Donald Trump is doing a lot better in the state, mostly because he hired this gal, Kellyanne Conway, I believe is her name. And she's a pollster. She focuses on the women vote. Kind of a coincidence that she started up, a week ago, and now we've got Women for Trump in Wisconsin. I think that they need to soften his messaging and get away from that immigration language, which she has helped. She's also telling him to use words like, I regret having having said really dumb things. And I think she's trying to appeal to the minority, or through him, to the minority vote, because she realizes that he looks like a racist for a lot of people that may vote for him, but they're really not sure. Well, I don't know if he can make it last, though.
Okay. Well, Jim Ott, I mean, the Trump campaign has, in many respects, after winning the nomination, has been kind of, in my opinion, sort of a train wreck on a different, all sorts of issues. Is it too late to turn it around? Can Wisconsin be competitive? Can the country be competitive?
Well, it's still more than two months till the election,
right.
Jeff. That's key, number one. Number two, whether your initial question was, has he turned his campaign around in Wisconsin? Maybe it's in the process of turning. I think it's too soon to say, because those poll numbers, they'll be coming in, and maybe when they see a shift, we can say it's turned around. What I will say is he's given a number of very good speeches in the last couple of weeks, and that is good. Number two, he is toning down the rhetoric. He does seem to be listening to his advisors more, and I think that's important. The debates are still coming up, so there's still time.
Actually, those debates are one of the few debates that I might rather watch than watching NFL football. No, there's no question about it. It's, I think it is going to be interesting. Okay, what has your glass half full? What has your glass half empty? Let's go around the table. Ms. Falk.
Sure. Startup business activity nationwide is finally on the rise for the first time since the Great Recession, as reported this week by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation. That's the good news. The half empty part is that Wisconsin ranks at the very bottom for the second year in a row.
Alberta Darling.
My half empty. Why did prosecutors let Slyville Smith off the hook time and time again? Prosecutors have dropped multiple felony charges against him, and this young man, a father, is dead now.
And
glass is half full because we had Direct Supply expand. They're building their 5th expansion. They're going to predict 800 new employees. And in an area of Milwaukee that greatly needs jobs and people to have good paying jobs, this is a real winner.
Tracy Johnson.
All right, I'm going to combine both of those. My glass is half full because Wisconsin continues to attract companies and grow others. Direct Supply announced this week plans to expand its development footprint and add 800 new Milwaukee jobs in the next 7 years. My glass is half empty because a recent report found that Wisconsin ranks last in startup activity, despite a nationwide increase in startups. With so many programs like Generator and BizStarts, could it just be a matter of time to see those rankings rise?
Jim Ott.
My glass is half empty, Jeff, because Wisconsin remains one of only 16 states that still has a minimum markup law that forces consumers to pay more for the products they purchase. It's half full because the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty has filed a lawsuit challenging the law, and even if that doesn't work, I still plan on reintroducing a bill to repeal the law.
There's your breaking news. My glass is half full because it looks like Clay Matthews and Julius Peppers will be cleared of allegations that they used banned substances. It's half empty because the arrogant NFL shouldn't have tarnished their reputations in the first place based solely on a discredited report from the now defunct Al Jazeera TV network. Our Sunday Insight Countdown shows we're 29 days from the first scheduled debate between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. The presidential election is 72 days away, and either Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump takes the oath of office in 145 days. We'll be right back. Well, for the past several weeks, a committee of the Milwaukee Common Council heard testimony from a number of area law enforcement officials, judges, and politicians on crime in the city of Milwaukee. The report, which was released last week, landed with a thud. According to some, the report was too heavy on tough on crime recommendations and too light on social reforms. Some even bristled at the idea that Milwaukee has a severe crime problem. So, is tough on crime the way to go? Susie Falk.
Well, I think the report came out and then it was softened, and what was going to lead the report was this increase in the number of police on the streets. So they were going to bring it back up to the 2008 level, which I understand is important to some. But I think where they got it right was they switched the priority order and put the community and police relationship building as a very strong priority. And I think it's very important that the police and the community all work together to try to sort through this. I think the smartest thing that they did was to set up 2 public hearings for people to weigh in on this. And those will be coming up in the next few weeks. I guess one will be on the north side, one will be on the south side. And this is the time for the public to weigh in on this, to vent, to express what they're looking for in the safety program.
Tracy Johnson, I mean, we talk about police-community relations, and people want safe neighborhoods, but then when you have aggressive law enforcement, a lot of people in those neighborhoods say, no, the police are being too aggressive, they're out there, we've got mass incarceration. Is there an easy answer?
Well, I think that these public hearings, I hope that people will embrace this because we need to be tougher. I think we are spending too much time pussyfooting around and holding people's hands. We need to be tough on crime. And what we're doing is rewarding the people who are doing the crime. And I would think that the people in these communities would want more police enforcement. I think they would want it because we need to eradicate the problem. It's just the social program investment is not working. Let's try another investment.
Yeah, but at the same time, Alberta Darling, whenever we talk about that, we hear the arguments about mass incarceration.
Yes.
You're putting too many of this type of person or that type of person in prison, and we don't want to do that. Can we social program our way out of this problem?
We have to have safe streets and neighborhoods, and then the majority of people want that. What we have is a big disconnect between the police and the DAs and the judges, because we have so many habitual offenders on our street who commit, and nothing ever happens to them. People are really afraid of these young people who are committing crime after crime after crime. But what the police, they arrest them, they're not charged, and they're not sent to anything to have consequences. As long as this happens, like Seville Smith, as long as you can repeat, nothing's going to happen, our communities will not be safe. And to me, that's the key problem. These habitual offenders, nothing's happening to them.
Well, and Jim Mott, that's, I think the frustration a lot of people have is particularly with the juvenile justice system, where you have 15 and 16-year-old kids with records as long as my arm that are out there committing crime over and over again, and there's no real consequences. Do we need to toughen juvenile laws on the state level?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think in some cases, Jeff, the laws are already in place that could handle this. It's a matter of the prosecutions. It's a matter of sentencing more to the maximum than the minimum. You know, we're not talking about incarcerating jaywalkers. We're talking about the very worst perpetrators. As Senator Darling said, you know, Mayor Barrett says that the police are making a lot of arrests. You can arrest all the people you want, but if you've got a judicial system that's not dealing with them, court commissioners that set excessively low bail, you hear some of these crimes that are committed, and you look at the last time that person committed an armed robbery, it's not that long ago. So you're talking about maybe a relatively small number of people, getting them off the streets, you'd see a significant decrease in crime.
No, I agree with you completely. And of course, for the people that want more of a social program aspect, Governor Walker announced this week that he's got $4.5 million that's going to be redirected into some of the Milwaukee areas that need it the most to help with jobs, and we'll see if that's enough. Okay. You might not want to hear it, but we're going to tell it to you anyways. Let's dish out some unsolicited advice. Ms. Falk, you're first.
To the 20 million parents, myself included, who will be saying goodbye to their first college-bound child this week during the move-in, don't cry. Smile if you have to. Bite your lip if you really have to. Sing songs from the 80s. Do anything but cry. That only makes things worse. And trust that everything will be okay.
You just want that bedroom back. Alberta Darling.
To the Milwaukee County DA's office, your soft on crime approach is tough on neighbors. It's tough on Milwaukee's reputation.
Tracy Johnson.
My unsolicited advice is for anyone watching. When you see a police officer, verbally thank them or acknowledge their work. This is a crazy world, as we've seen in the past couple weeks, and police officers are the only ones who suit up every day and put their lives on the line. They deserve our respect and they deserve our thanks.
Jim Mott.
Jeff, I know you already mentioned this. I think it bears repeating. If the UW system wants to keep complaining about funding cuts, I'd advise them to look at some of the programs they spend money on, like the Inclusive Excellence Center at UWM, which advises students that terms like politically correct are politically incorrect.
That's my favorite story of the week.
Yes.
And my unsolicited advice is to Olympic swimmer Ryan Lochte. Son, next time go to the bathroom before you leave the party. Next on Sunday Insight, early in-person voting in some cities, not in others. Does this make sense, and is it fair? Well, after the United States Court of Appeals refused to intervene this week, the City of Madison announced that it would allow early in-person absentee voting to begin in late September. Milwaukee is expected to follow suit. They're going to actually start in early October. That means there will be no uniformity in poll hours between municipalities. In the state, and the voters in liberal enclaves will have more opportunity to vote than citizens in other parts of the state. Is this right, and does it make any sense? Tracy Johnson.
I thought Election Day was like one day a year.
It used to be, yeah.
It's like a year-round holiday now, and everybody can vote. I think that the thing that disturbs me most is that you're really setting up an unfair advantage, if you will, for other for the municipalities like Madison and Milwaukee, where there's early voting. I think what it does overall is it takes away a voter's opportunity to really focus on the issues and the ideas, and then be persuaded by the incentives to vote. I mean, you can set up now a polling center at a college campus. I mean, this is just not what we're used to. I think it's confusing, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for fraud.
Well, Susie Falk, I mean, I guess my biggest objection has always been the lack of uniformity. I guess it bothers me that if you live in Madison, you have 6 weeks to vote in person. If you live in Wapaka, you might only have 2 weeks. That's, I guess, for an election, it's that lack of uniformity that troubles me.
And I agree with you, and I think it should be consistent throughout the state. I think it could be about 2 or 3 weeks prior to the actual election. I think starting in late September is sort of ridiculous. I appreciate allowing better access to the franchise, so we're all voting, and I understand there are ways of doing that, but this is confusing, Jeff, and I agree with you. I think there should be consistency.
Alberta Darling, I mean, you were involved in legislation that tried to standardize this and said, okay, 2 weeks essentially, and it had to be uniform. How disappointed were you with the federal judge's ruling and then the Court of Appeals not intervening?
Well, very disappointing, but it's disappointed, and I think that we are really on the wrong track. We should be fair and it should be uniform. It's going to give a lot of people in Madison and Milwaukee a lot more opportunities to vote, and that can be good if everybody else had the same opportunity, but this law doesn't allow that.
Well, Jim Mott, people would say all you evil Republicans are trying to do is disenfranchise people. We want to give people more opportunities to vote, so why not let them vote 6 weeks before the election?
Well, for one thing, you're making up your mind in some cases, maybe when other developments are still going to come forward. And we're not talking about just the presidential race. There's other races on that ballot, too. So you vote 6 weeks before the election. What if something happens that changes your mind about one of these races? You can't go back and re-vote. It's done. That's number one. And number two, the legislature did think 2 weeks was a reasonable amount of time to early vote. I still think that's a reasonable amount of time. And if you need more time, there are ways to get around that with absentee ballots. So I don't know what the point is of doing this, but that's what the judge said.
Well, I mean, I guess, to me, it's amazing that you have a court system that's now going to, you have a federal judge that's now going to dictate what a state legislature should be able to do
really
when it sets, when it sets the hours. I mean, we've lost the right in Wisconsin to say, okay, 2 weeks is enough. Exactly. I think the case is ultimately going to get reversed on appeal, but who knows? Okay, what is it that you don't get? Let's go around the table. Susie Falk.
What I don't get is why it takes rioting and mayhem to get people to wake up to the critical needs of a community.
Alberta Darling.
What I don't get is how the Milwaukee School Board and the Teachers Union can reject our plan to rescue failing schools in the city, and the results and the riots show that what happens here, people don't have hope.
Tracy Johnson.
What I don't get are these driverless cars. BMW and Ford will be rolling out models by 2021. We're still grappling as a society with safety concerns, handing over our driving to computers. It puts into perspective how much safer we really are when we hit the streets with drivers who are distracted or tired.
Jim Mott.
Jeff, with health insurance rates in the online Obamacare marketplace is expected to rise between 5.5% and 38% in Wisconsin next year, and even more in other states. Why is it still called the Affordable Care Act?
And what I don't get is why the state legislature refuses to repeal the 1939 minimum market law like Jim Mott was talking about. What is it about cheap gas and discounted groceries that at least some politicians don't like? Next on Sunday Insight, our panel picks the winners and losers of the week. First, though, here's your morning news update. It's time for our panel to pick the winners and losers of the week. Susie Falk, you're first.
My winner this week, the hundreds of thousands who got to visit the national parks this summer, kept open to the public and kept up beautifully by the National Park Service, which celebrates its centennial this week. Pittsburgh's Mylan Labs, the pharmaceutical giant who jacked up the price of an EpiPen from $57 to $600 and now is trying to get through a PR mess with discounts for the needy, is my big loser this week. I guess Mylan's tax savings through its recent corporate inversion wasn't helping the company's bottom line enough. Way to sting your customers and the taxpayers.
Alberta Darling.
My winner is my friend Jim Mott, who just received the True Friend of Law Enforcement Community Award from the Wisconsin's Chief of Police. Congratulations, Jim. Well deserved.
Your loser?
And my loser is Hillary Clinton, because she has this access through donations to the Shady Clinton Foundation. The pay to play is just the wrong way to go for our country. We can't have the United States up for sale.
Tracy Johnson.
All right, my losers are those who rely on the EpiPen. The price increase to $600 per use can only be defined as gouging. It's an unethical trend by the makers of life-saving drugs. We need more competition and innovation, so get on it. My winner is the Milwaukee Film Festival. Oscar-winning director and Mequon native John Ridley will be joining the festival's board of directors. Milwaukee Film shines a light on Milwaukee's creative culture and is gaining national exposure. Watch out, Sundance.
Jim Ott.
My loser, Hillary Clinton. Last week it was revealed that the FBI discovered an additional 15,000 emails that she didn't turn over to the State Department, and then there were the emails obtained by Judicial Watch indicating more than half of the 154 people outside of government who met or had phone conversations with Mrs. Clinton while she was Secretary of State were donors to the Clinton Foundation. My winners, the men and women of Team USA for outstanding performances in the Summer Olympics and for the hard work and dedication it takes just to make the team. Great work, Team USA.
And great minds think alike. My loser this week is Heather Bresch. She's the sleazy CEO of the company that makes the EpiPens. Her compensation has gone from $2.5 million to almost $19 million a year as she's jacked up the cost of this life-saving device by over 400%. People like Bresch give capitalism a bad name. And my winner, it's all the U.S. Olympians who represented our country so well at the recently completed Rio Games. Well, thanks for joining us. Be sure to have a great week.